Alrighty, what is going on, guys? This is Cisco from the podcast 00 Guys. Just me today. None of the other guys were going to be here for this, but I did want to go ahead and talk about the Game Awards. They just happened, and if you're anything like me, then you probably think the Game Awards are mostly a waste of time. I spent the last couple of years just sort of clowning on them, because as we know, you spend a lot of hours of the night listening to people talk, listening to cruddy bands play music like Green Day. God, that was so bad. That was so bad. Occasionally there'll be some funny moments, some memes to come out of it. Bill Clinton. But for the most part, a lot of people spend the whole night waiting to see a trailer from one game that they probably don't even get. And even if you do, the rest of the 3-4 hours the thing is going on, you're just completely disinterested, right? So why would they even matter? And the awards themselves don't really even do anything. But this year, for whatever reason, I decided I was going to try to come into this with a bit of an open mind. I was just going to sit down, watch. I usually play Smash or some other game while they're going on, but I didn't really do anything else. I just sort of sat and watched. And, to my surprise, this year was actually the most interesting year that we've had to date. I think there were quite a few games that look pretty interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more from them. So today I want to talk about some of the best trailers, some of the best game reveals that were at the Game Awards. Now real quick, a couple of stipulations. We're not going to be talking about games from extremely large titles for the most part. So things that are super highly anticipated, things that would obviously make the top of this list, because that's no fun. So no Final Fantasy 16, no Armored Core 6, no Death Stranding 2, because again, that wouldn't really be any fun. So we're going to be covering games that are maybe not necessarily small. They don't have to be small, just smaller than some of these larger companies that we are already very well associated with. They also cannot be games that we have known about in advance for long before the Game Awards even happened. So those are really the only stipulations, so let's go ahead and get into it. Actually, first, let's do some honorable mentions. There are 3 games that I also thought were interesting, but didn't really feel like including on the list for some reasons I'll explain in a quick second. The first honorable mention is going to be Behemoth. Now, this game looked like a Behemoth game. I mean, the game looked absolutely phenomenal. Visually, crazy good. Crazy good. I mean, the narration was great. The sound design, the music, everything was there. Everything was there. The only issue with the game is that it's for VR. I mean, I think the vast majority of us don't play VR games, so as far as accessibility is concerned, most of us just, we're never going to play it. And also, I don't want to put it on here and then in tandem recommend it to people when, I mean, I know I don't have a VR headset, and the vast majority of you probably don't either. But if you do, I would check the game out, because I know if I did, I definitely would check that game out. It looks like a Souls game, but it's more interactive with your environment, even though, I mean, I haven't really played a Souls game, so I couldn't tell you if that's different or not. But the way you can interact with your environment looked really nice. Looking forward to seeing some more gameplay from it in the future, even though, again, I will probably never play it. The next honorable mention is Blue Protocol, the anime sci-fi game by Bandai Namco and Amazon Games. That was very unexpected. Again, visually, the game looks absolutely phenomenal. Look at the environments and look at the colors. Everything looks very, very, very well done. Only thing is there wasn't anything that really made it seem to stand out outside of it being an anime game. I mean, don't get me wrong, again, the game does look great. Like visually, it looks phenomenal. It's just, we didn't really see anything to make it say, hey, like this is what the game is. This is what it's about. It just sort of looked like a standard anime RPG. So I'll be looking out for more details in the future, but I can't necessarily say that it is one of the best trailers that we got from the night. And the last honorable mention is Hades 2. The only reason why Hades 2 is on here is because it is a sequel, and I did say I want to avoid sequels for the most part. So, yeah, it wouldn't really be fair if I were to include Hades 2, but then disqualified a lot of the other sequels we got through the night. But again, Hades 2 is a roguelike. It is a industry leader in that particular genre of video games that is growing in popularity. I mean, look at Risk of Rain 2, look at Binding of Isaac, even the first Hades, all very successful, all only growing in popularity as time goes on. And I'm glad to see that, again, this big titan, as far as roguelikes are concerned, is making a sequel that looks at least as good as the first game. So with that being said, let's get into the actual top 5 game reveal trailers of the Game Awards for 2022. So looking at number 5 is Meet Your Maker. This game looked like a pretty fun game to play with friends. I'd imagine the game is probably going to be $20, $30, maybe $40. It looked like a... I don't want to compare it to Team Fortress 2, because that probably wouldn't be accurate, like at all. But the concept behind it, where you're meant to build a fortress, you're meant to go invade or watch the invasion happen. I'm not exactly sure which. It just seemed like a nice game to play with friends. It looked like a very, very interesting and deep game. I would imagine there's going to be a lot of things going on in that game, and I would imagine that it's going to be very entertaining, at least to play with the group. The reason why it's number 5 is because, again, that seems about to be all it is. It's just a fun game to play with friends, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, when we talk about video games, the scope can be so large that I think it deserves to be number 5. Number 4 is Wild Hearts. This game looked very interesting. The aesthetic of the game, very, very unique. I'd say, I believe it is an MMO. I'm not entirely sure. I would need to go watch the trailer again, but it does look like, stylistically and even graphically, it looks very good. We know MMOs are usually limited in how graphically impressive they can be due to, technology limitations. Those tend to be very big games, a whole lot going on. So, if you were to have ray tracing going on in an MMO, your PC would probably explode. But that is not to take away from the look of the game. Again, it does look good. I am very interested in seeing where that game goes with that whole aesthetic. The weapons look pretty unique. The monsters look unique. I mean, it's just, again, I keep going back to aesthetics, but I do think that is kind of what's carrying the game right now, considering we haven't seen a whole lot of it. Again, these are just initial reveals, but yeah, interested in seeing where it goes. Okay, number 3. Number 3 looked very, very good. That is the game Replaced. I don't remember if we saw who the studio was that was making it. It seemed like it was maybe from a smaller studio, might be an indie game. I'm not exactly sure. But this game was the very first to catch my eye of the evening. I do know it was shown rather early, so of course it would be, one of the first. But this game stayed in my memory throughout the night. I mean, doing a game in a dystopian setting, it's not entirely unique, but it isn't something that's necessarily common either. So that was the first thing that catch my eye. The next was that the environments, they look great, and then the contrast with the somewhat spritey elements of the character models. It had that 2.5 HD look like we see in Octopath, like in Triangle Strategy. Very, very Square Enix looking look, but with a very dramatic twist on it. If you look at how realistic the environments look, and then you slap on this 2.5 HD stylized dystopian, New York City kind of looking vibe, and you slap them together, it looked so good. It looked so good. It looked somewhat modern, but also futuristic at the same time. There are some very nice set pieces across that trailer as well. I don't know if we saw too much of the gameplay. There was some showing off of the sprites and movement during combat, and that looked very fluid. Again, not sure if that's gameplay, not really entirely sure how that would work, but it was very nice to see how alive the game looked, despite it having that dystopian feel. I know that sounds kind of backwards, but you look at the streets and you see there are people moving, a whole lot of things going on. The game seems really fluid. The game just seems very alive. Very, very nice use of colors despite the dreary look that it's supposed to have. And I'm very much looking forward to it. I think that might be a day one purchase for me, depending on how much more we see. The number 2 is going to be Banishers. Now, we didn't see too much as far as gameplay is concerned. The game could be absolutely terrible as far as, again, gameplay is concerned. But, the visuals were, again, great. very realistic. I do like the character designs that they showed. And narratively speaking, it spoke very, very loudly. It felt like the most engaging of the trailers of the night. The vibe was one of the more unique ones. The whole night was pretty much action-packed, filled with games that had similar levels of excitement to them, but that one really brought the levels back down and then made you sort of look eye to eye with the characters. A lot of the shots were very dead on, and you had to almost make eye contact with them. And with the style of speech, with the way the dialogue carried out, and the low levels of music, you had to engage with the characters on a very somber level. I guess that's the word. It was very eye-catching. It was very eye-catching, and I think the rest of the night, being as action-packed as it was, did very well for the game in the trailer and making it look as unique as it did. Everything about that game was just conveyed very well over the course of that trailer, and once again, I am looking forward to seeing more. So, the number one, I think what was the best looking trailer was Jedi Survivor. Now, I know I said no big names, and Star Wars is a pretty big name. However, in video games in particular, I don't feel as though Star Wars is that large. I do think it is larger than some of the other games that we talked about, but it also isn't on that Final Fantasy level, I don't believe. I could be wrong. I don't play that many Star Wars games, but I know I don't hear as much about Star Wars games as I do things like Death Stranding, things like The Witcher, things like Sekiro. So to me, it seems maybe a tier or half a tier down from these sort of top tier looking games that I said would be excluded from this list. I think when it comes to Star Wars, there is a lot of imagination to be had. It is a very, very well fleshed out series over the course of the many years that it's been around, and we exclude the Disney movies. And so really capturing the essence of Star Wars in a video game seems like it would be easy, but I think there might be a fair amount of difficulties you could run into when making that sort of thing happen, when making everything look fluid, turning it into an actual game instead of a lot of cutscenes or quick time events. I think that sort of thing might be a bit difficult with how intricate a lot of the moves can be, whilst also making it look deep. But I think the gameplay in this trailer looked like both of those things. I mean, from you being mounted on whatever that animal was, I'm not super into Star Wars. I can't tell you what all the different animals and planets and environmental things are called. But him going in and swooping in and doing combat on that looked very nice. A lot of the special moves of them slowing down time with the Force and being able to move around real quick, that looked nice. I mean, everything about the game looked very fluid, and narratively, again, I do think it was there. You didn't get a whole lot about the plot from that trailer, but I think it was enough to sort of get you invested. Starting off with the dude in whatever that cryo tube looking thing was, going to the main character, you definitely got a sense of maybe rivalry between the two. Not saying that they actually are rivals, but more so that this is going to be the main antagonist, this is going to be the protagonist. Even if not that field, then you definitely know that those two are going to be the driving forces in the story. I do think they got you interested enough. But focusing on gameplay, I believe, was a very smart decision. It seems like they have an awful lot to show off, which is a good thing. We didn't see a wide variety of gameplay throughout the night. We mostly saw things that were sort of spectacles, right? Which were what most of the trailers that I even talked about up to this point were. So part of the reason why this is number one is because we saw a good idea of what the game actually looked like, and it looked very good. This may not necessarily be my favorite. I don't think this is going to be a day one purchase for me, but I will say, when looking at it from a bit more of an objective standpoint, I don't see how any of the trailers before Jedi Survivor could have topped it. If you are looking for my opinion, then I believe Replaced is definitely my favorite. I think that one looks the most interesting to me. I think that probably appeals to my taste in video games a little bit more, but I am not afraid to check out any of the rest of these games. In fact, I believe I'll be keeping a very close eye on them. But I know we're all into different things, different strokes for different folks, please do let me know in the comments if you agree with my top 5, and if you have a different top 5, again, let me know what that is, and looking forward to interacting with you. Thanks for watching.